All right, we are live here. This is USCFootball.com live. We're in our little studio in Redondo Beach, California, and this is where we talk all about the USC Trojan football team. If you heard that, that was Keely Ewer. She's got her microphone on, or her speakers on. She does a great job covering USC football for us as a video reporter,
Thank you.
sideline reporter, whatever you want to call it. She's doing all kinds of stuff for us. And we got Shotgun Spratling drinking his 5th energy drink of the morning.
That is not true. I actually went almost an entire week without an energy drink.
Wow.
From last week.
That's big. That's really big.
Yeah.
And I broke it last night, and stayed up till 6 in the morning.
So he does a lot of reporting for us on recruiting and on the team. Super analytical guy, so make sure you check out his participation notes when he gets those up. And got game notes coming up soon, heading into Arizona State. I'm Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com. This is our weekly live show. We start Thursdays at noon. Talk for about an hour. We want to answer your questions. So if you're watching live on Facebook Live, send your comments in, your questions in. We'll try to talk about all the topics you would like to discuss. We're going to we'll talk a little bit about what happened in Notre Dame. All of us were there in South Bend, but we want to look ahead to the Arizona State game as well. I actually got up this morning, guys, so at like 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep, and said, okay, I'm going to turn the game on. So I ended up rewatching the game again this morning. It was pretty much just as bad as I remember it in person.
So how many times is that you subjected yourself to the game?
Just once. That was the only time, though. I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like I re-watched it.
Okay.
I'm
But
the only one that's...
You have to re. They didn't have a Pac-12 game in 60.
Yeah,
for this
I
one.
noticed that, which was strange because Notre Dame
Yeah,
last
right.
year they did have it. I don't know if it's an NBC thing in Notre Dame.
Yeah.
If they own the exclusive rights or something like that. But NBC doesn't put on a similar show, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, you guys have watched it again. Everybody, we've watched it again. It's it was pretty bad. I think one of the things I didn't get a chance to look at this before, and maybe you guys realized, I was kind of harping on the special teams aspect of the game. There were some obvious, real big screw ups like the muff punt from Jack Jones, the obviously missed short field goal that they probably shouldn't have been going for a field goal anyway. But there was just so many little mistakes going through. There was a punt that should have been down inside the 5 that Marvell just kind of walked it into the end zone. It was really kind of strange. It looked like it would have been fairly easy to kind of stop that one. But I think there was 5 penalties that I counted on special teams play. So if you extrapolate that out to that would be like 15 on offense or something. So I mean that's a lot of penalties for the very limited number of special teams plays. I just thought overall, without giving up a touchdown directly, this was a really bad special teams day too.
I agree.
Yeah, they did not play very well. The Marvell where they tried to down the ball at the 1, that led to a long argument I think there was a TV timeout, and Clay Helton was just screaming at the ref, telling him you're wrong about the whole thing, and all the players were just in disbelief, kind of standing around waiting to hear it. Same thing with the third down changed to first down changed to third down. If you watch the broadcast version, the referee actually comes over into the huddle and says, it's my fault, I was wrong, whatever, on that play. But USC had already used a timeout because they had sent out, they had called a first down play, a play they would run on first down, and sent out the personnel for that. And then when it became third down, they decided to go to the 3 tight end set, which has not worked very well this season. That was what they tried to use against Texas on the goal line. Yeah. That didn't work. It was a similar play, actually, where the tight end kind of gets beat, and then Eric Cromenhoek tries to help out on that block and kind of pushes him into the hole for the little tiny bit of a hole that Ronald Jones had. That play was kind of messed up all over because Josh Follow is supposed to come across for a kick-out block. Ronald Jones beats him to the spot. So Ronald Jones is facing 2 linebackers because Follow didn't get across in time to kind of block the play. So there was a lot of things that went wrong with that play. They ended up losing yard, and that's why they ended up going for the field goal. And because they weren't really sure on the spot, then Clay Helton waits for a second, and then that's how they get a delay of game penalty. So that one's actually not on the special teams. That was more Clay's fault.
Yeah.
For not making.
But it's still it's a it's a team. It's a functioning unit. That's,
I told someone on the sideline, it's like, well, at least they're playing as a team. The offense is playing bad, the defense is playing bad, and the special teams is playing bad.
Yeah.
So at least they're doing it well all together.
I think last week we talked about, so one of the keys was that USC turns the ball over more than almost anybody, and now they're second in the nation, second from the bottom of the nation. Notre Dame's very good at converting turnovers into touchdowns. I think 9 of their first 10 turnovers they forced turned into touchdowns. USC's been very good, give Clancy Pendergast credit, and they got a lot of practice. not allowing points after those turnovers. But lo and behold, which one was going to happen? Well, it was Notre Dame. They three turnovers turned them into 3 touchdowns. It seemed like the offense would screw up. If the defense make a big play, the offense would screw it up. Then once the offense kind of got rolling, the defense wasn't going to stop anybody. The special teams was bad all night. It just seemed like nothing worked. And everyone we talked to, and I maybe get your comments on this, Keely, after you put your drink down. Everyone we talked to, it just seemed like, it was just little things. It seemed, watching it, it was a big problem, not like a bunch of little things.
Yeah, the other thing that I kept getting this week was we also kind of weren't prepared for the atmosphere, which is kind of, I got that from both Deontay Burnett and Chris Hawkins, and
Really?
it's like, that's surprising considering how much they had prepared for it in the week. Also, how are you not, you're coming in, it's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
It's Notre Dame, you should know what you're expecting, and then you're going into another hostile environment. ASU's sold out. That's one of the loudest stadiums that I've been in, if I remember correctly, and so it's like, if that's a problem in week 8, that's not good.
No, and they did the Irish jig. Like, they were playing the fight song. They were playing, what's the
I'm shipping up to Boston.
Shipping out to Boston that we were all like kind of getting into. I've had a couple, I don't know if you guys too, I've had a couple people ask me, like when I said, hey man, this is going to be like kind of off the record stuff. It's going to be a crazy environment, Halloween and stuff. And they were kind of like, really? You think so? Like, it'll be sold out? Like, I don't know. It just seemed like they didn't realize this ASU game is huge. They just beat Washington. They just beat Utah. It's going to be, Friday night in Tempe at 7:45. Nothing good happens there on Mill Ave. It's going to be, they're all going to be drunk. It's going to be insane.
A lot happens good on Mill Ave.
Yeah. But did you get that sense from anybody that they didn't even, just didn't seem to know, hey, this is going to be nuts Saturday night?
The vibe at practice was kind of, Dan and I talked about this on Instant Analysis. It was kind of weird. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't necessarily we have a chance to not right the ship because nothing's really, it's an embarrassing loss, but you're still 6-2, you control your destiny in the Pac-12, but there wasn't a sense of, let's put this behind us, let's get fired up, let's go. It was kind of it's another week of practice. You wouldn't have known what happened on Saturday happened based on the way you looked at how they practice on this
Which
week.
Could be good. Which, you sometimes say, oh, you played bad, you've put it behind you, gone on to the next week. But with this team, it doesn't seem like they bounced back. You would want a little bit more energy even, from some of the guys. Really what I think needs to happen is somebody who's not a talkative person, maybe Sam Darnold, maybe one of the older guys it's not their role really to speak up, needs to get up on a table in the locker room and call some people out and go after them. And it can't be the same 3 guys on defense. The 3 captains, those are the guys have been yelling at people. They need somebody on the offensive side has to do that. Sam Darnold, that's not his personality, but somebody has to do it. I don't know if it needs to be Toa Lobanon. I kind of talked with him. He said, that's not really his personality either. And he said maybe I need to speak up a little bit more. Somebody, one of those veterans on that side, even if it's Deontay Burnett. Deontay Burnett was trying to encourage the defense a couple drives on the sideline. Maybe that's somebody who needs to just light into somebody else. And you can even, in the locker room, you can pre-plan these things. You can go and be like, hey, I'm going to get into you, and just we got to get this going.
Right.
But somebody has to, because it just feels like it's kind of flat. Sometimes when something bad happens, you need something to pick you back up, and that is not. It just didn't feel like that so far this week. There's still a couple more days. There could be something on the trip that kind of rallies the team. As I always say, they're 18 and 22-year-olds. All they need is one thing to rally around, and suddenly, they've got emotion. They're playing with fire. But they need something because right now it's a little dead at practice at least, and they played basically dead coming out of that game. There just wasn't a ton of energy on the sideline. You had a couple guys get fired up and upset, but it wasn't enough to get the whole team going. They need somebody, a leader, to step up and make an impact in that locker room, I think.
And you and I have talked about this, and even on our podcast, there's not really an offensive leader. I know Darnold
vocal
is.
Leader.
Not a vocal leader. Yeah, I know Darnold is, and I know Deontay Burnett is, but they're not the type of guy to get in your face. I tweeted, there needs to be, not that a speech would have fixed it, but there had to be someone to get in your face and be like, we're better than this. That's a Zach Banner. Zach Banner you could hear him from 100 yards away when he was mad, There's not that guy who is going to get in people's faces, has the leadership and the years under him to be like, we're better than this, turn it around. Darnold does this thing where he's the last guy on the sideline standing by himself. And I mean, if they're winning, do we necessarily bring that up? I don't know, but it looks kind of bad in a loss like that. Your quarterback, your leader, is just not doing anything when you have Deontay Burnett trying to get everyone pumped up and it's not really working.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, last year they had some, loudmouth guys. You had Banner, you had Juju, and those are fiery competitors too. So, I thought maybe they needed a fight in practice this week or something. I need somebody just to go after somebody else and get the juice going. We didn't really see that. Maybe that'll happen behind closed doors today. You never know. Like I said, on a road trip too, it could be the simplest thing at a rest stop or something. If they were busing.
Yeah.
I'm used to busing. Or on the way to the in the airport or something to just bring them together. I just don't feel like that's happened so far the last couple of weeks. Since they've lost to Washington State, it's just there hasn't been a ton of energy. You thought the momentum coming off that Utah game, that okay. Now maybe this team will play their potential, and we just didn't see it at all last week. And it didn't help that every little bounce, every little call seemed to go their way. I mean, I marked like 4 or 5 different times where the ball was spotted like 2 yards back for USC or 2 yards ahead for Notre Dame. Just like every little tiny thing was going against USC. That didn't help. And then when you started the ball over 3 times, and you talked about how USC had been so good at stopping turnovers, I believe the Notre Dame twice scored in the first half on third and goals.
Yes, they were.
And I believe both of those were after turnovers. So if you get a stop there, if the game's 20-0 at halftime, that's a lot different than 28-0 because they come out and score initially. You're like, okay, it's 27. Last week we came back from 21-7. You get some momentum, and especially if you can get a stop on that next drive, then all of a sudden you're in the game. It's a completely different game. Or even earlier, there were so many momentum potential plays that USC didn't hit on. You have the deep ball to Stephen Mitchell.
Yeah, it just didn't look like he adjusted to that at all.
You can have a huge explosive play, and instead they can't connect. The deep ball's been such troubling for him. It didn't seem like he. I don't know if it maybe I said maybe the win could have been a potential. I'm just bringing up the possibilities, and people got on to me on the message board like, oh, it could be. Like the wind was blowing pretty good down on the sideline, so maybe it held it up a little bit, and he just didn't read the trajectory right off of it. Sam didn't get it, fully into it, put a little bit too much air on it. I don't know exactly what the reason was, but they didn't connect. Yeah. If they did, I think that's a 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown. All of a sudden, you swing the momentum back to your side. It's 14-7. Even later on that drive, if they get they convert on the third down, they go in and score. Again, it's 14-7. It's just a completely different ball game than when you're down 14-0 and they go take a 21-0 lead and then a 28-0 lead off of 2 turnovers back to back. So. The game got away from USC really quickly, but they had potential momentum changing plays that they just couldn't convert on.
At the end of the day, it's a 35-point beatdown to a rival, the second worst in the series, right, since the 51-0 game or whatever. And so pretty bad. And so the fans are upset. And it was funny rewatching the game this morning. Mike Tirico was talking about. They were talking about like the Pac. They have to talk about other things because the game was pretty much over. They're talking about the Pac-12 standings and that USC still controls its own destiny. And it was almost like he was reading our message boards. He knew he mentioned that I know USC fans don't want to hear this, but they still have the Pac blah 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 6-2. They can still control their own destiny. And that's been the kind of narrative with the coaching staff and stuff going forward. But it's weird because the fans are really upset. They've seen them not play up to their potential. They're 1-7. USC's 1-7 against the spread, which if you want to look at it as, playing up to expectations. They just haven't done that. And then when you lay an egg like that, fans want to see some big changes. And really, we haven't seen it. And like we've talked about, the players we talked to seem to be, a little play here, a little play there. I think it's true to some aspect, but there has to be something bigger going on too, because it just seemed like it was a problem for everybody going on.
Yeah, the problem is there are a lot of little things. I mean, Jack Jones said it perfectly about his fumble. He said, it's nothing too big. He said, I took my eyes off of it. It's nothing too big as far as a correctable mistake. He said, but it's just a little minor mistake, but the minor mistakes are the big mistakes. And that's how it is. I mean, he just took his eyes off the ball, and then that turns into a huge thing because you turn the ball over at the 10-yard line, you give it to him easy field after you just got to stop. So in other words, it seemed like everybody had, just a little mistake. Yeah. And then those, when you compound that, when you have, 50 guys playing a game, you have 50 little mistakes. That's a hefty mistake tally there.
Yeah. I did like him returning punts though, like his first punt of the game. Like someone caught a ball that was flying in the air and then ran forward with it, and you're like, that's unique.
Let me give Ajene Harris. Ajene Harris would have turned that ball too because he had at least 9 to 10 yards space between any defender. So that's the pitch to hit they've been waiting for. And granted, he took advantage of it. He returned it 16 yards. the longest return they've had this season. So then his next return, he returns at 25 yards, the longest return they've had this season. It gets called back. I want to discuss this play because it gets called back, and they call a block in the back on 54. I don't know if you guys know the roster, but 54 happens to be Jalen McKenzie,
Right.
who's not on the trip, and you know who is number
He was
54?
in LA, yeah.
Their long snapper who shoved Chris Hawkins in the back. So, and looking at the broadcast view, you can't tell if there's maybe there's a penalty that's out of the broadcast view.
I don't think they showed that penalty specifically. I remember the play, yeah.
But like on the, as he's returning the kick, you can't see anyone else blocking them back. So did they call a penalty on Notre Dame and cost USC 10 yards? And then also the spotting was really weird. Like he was at the 33 when they threw the penalty, and they gave him the 38-yard line, and then moved it back 10 yards. It's like there was a lot of things wrong with that play. That was what I was talking about, how every little thing seemed to go against USC.
Yeah.
But anyways, he returns that one 25 yards. He gets credit for 10. His last return, he returns it, I think, 21 yards, which is, again, the longest return of the season. So 3 times he bested the previous long. So you got to like the explosiveness there. I mean, I called it treacherous for both teams. Treacherous for the 3 returns.
Yeah.
He could potentially pop one. Treacherous for the one he drops as well for USC. But he practiced a ton yesterday and the day before. So, I think that's going to be his spot going forward. And that was one of the positives of the game, other than the muff.
Yeah, he did. Well, he kind of got benched for a little while. He had 2. I think he had 2 penalties on himself on special teams too, like a couple. So, but Jack Jones came out. He worked hard yesterday after practice, answered everyone's questions. So, props to him. I just think he's a better option. Back, we love a Jenny Harris. Think he's doing a good job. But as far as punt return stuff goes, I think it's Jack Jones all the way.
Don't you think it was kind of strange that that's the game they put him back there?
Not
Yes.
strange. It's stupid. Like
Yes.
that's a dumb coaching move.
Yes.
Like-
I still go back to the Cal game. Ajani didn't play on defense, and then suddenly he's out there returning punts. That's your guy that you want. Like, that's the game where you put someone else in.
Yeah.
I just don't
He was
understand
injured
it.
enough that they didn't want to use him on defensively. I mean, he did play a couple snaps, but
Okay,
they wanted to
but-
try not to use him, basically, because
But you
of his
still
injury.
use him on punt returns, and you
Yeah.
can get where you're going to get tackled. Like,
Yeah.
that makes
I don't
no. Keely's right. It's not. I mean, Jack Jones, to put him his very first time returning all those punts in Notre Dame Stadium in that environment with the wind and all that stuff, it's just he should have been doing it a couple weeks earlier. So that's, to me, that's a coaching. So I'm not knocking Jack Jones for what he's doing there. It would have been better if he had a couple games worth of punt returns under his belt.
Yep. Let's go into questions.
Do we
shall
have questions?
We
Okay.
got a lot. Romero says,
A lot
will we
already?
see more Pittman this weekend? And I love Fallow's involvement lately in offense. Well, Fallow had a boot on his foot yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, that one's going to be interesting.
Don't get it too attached to follow.
I mean, Fallow didn't play too much until garbage time in this game.
Yeah.
He played a little bit.
No tight ends caught a ball.
And part of that, it was the defensive scheme by Notre Dame. What was available to USC the entire game were the hitches and snag routes on the outside where it was basically an 8 to 9 yards hitch. They turn around, throw it. Darnold put the ball out there. They did some outs as well. And they were just giving a huge cushion, especially on the wide side of the field. So USC took advantage. That's why you have Stephen Mitchell and Tyler Vaughns and Deontay having so many yards on the outside in that game. They really compacted the middle because they know how much Darnold loves to throw the middle. They took away the tight ends. So USC took what was there some. I would have liked to see them just continue running that, those outside routes until Notre Dame made some adjustments, which we didn't really see.
But balance, though, Shotgun. You got to go balance. You can't, just because it's working, you can't keep doing it. Stop.
That's what bothers me. It's like, why not keep doing it until the defense has an answer for it?
Yeah.
It's
There was like
a
21
valid
catches,
question.
I think, between those 3 guys, right? Like it was like 8, 7, and 6 or something. And
Yep.
I think so, yeah. I just know that. So in Las Vegas, if you play blackjack, if you have it 8 and 7 and 6, that's 21. So that's how I added that up.
Of course
in
you
my
would
head.
go back to Vegas.
Romero also asks, is Christian Rector's hand serious? So for people who don't know, Christian Rector left practice early, walking off the field with the trainer. When asked, Helton said that it's a hand injury, and he said if it's serious, he said, well, it's never a good thing when you walk off the field.
Right.
Which Helton doesn't really usually let on if it's serious or not, especially lately.
So
and
it
so
could be.
it could be.
Yeah, anytime you leave the practice field, because usually if you're at practice, they want you to just stay and watch if it's nothing serious.
Yeah.
But the fact he had to go inside, get worked on.
And not return.
What was the other part? He had the first part was question.
Pittman.
Pittman, yeah.
Oh.
My theory is because
Sorry.
his dad went on that. So our guy Chris Trevino, who's actually here. Hold on, I'll show you real quick. Say hi, Chris.
Hello.
There's Chris. He's here. He's a fly on the wall observer for our. He hasn't been to our office before, so we can check it out. But he put a piece together, a bunch of the social media posts from Michael Pittman Sr., former NFL player, who was not happy at the role that his son, Michael Pittman Jr., was playing. So my theory is because he was, getting stirred up about that, they play Pittman more. I don't know what you guys think.
Pittman has to play better too. There was one in particular route. Now, granted, this is one play. Like I said, everybody made mistakes, but USC went max protect. They had 2 tight ends in and a running back. So they go max protect with 8 guys blocking basically, or 7 guys blocking for Darnold, or 8 guys blocking. Excuse me, 8 guys blocking for him. 2 receivers on the right, and both receivers ran the same exact route. Pittman came in motion, basically lined up beside the other guy, and they ran the same route. And from the sidelines reaction, they were blaming Pittman for the route he ran. So you got to play better when you're in. And now he hasn't got a lot of opportunities, the ball thrown his way in particular. But he's done well when the ball has been thrown to him.
Yeah.
One of the few guys that I don't think he has a drop all season. So he's been trying to work his way in. This game right here, they went more with the last year's philosophy of we're just going to play the starters almost the entire time.
Yes.
I mean, Stephen Mitchell and Tyler Vaughn's played the vast majority of the snaps this game. Rather than previous games, they kind of subbed in guys and gave them a drive or two. I mean, Pittman played a little bit, but not too much. And he actually technically started last game and didn't play a ton in that Utah game, but he did start. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, depending on how Stephen Mitchell's shoulder is,
that's true.
We will probably see more Pittman, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. Sorry. Peter says, saw a lot of individual beats on the left tackle. Any chance we see either Johnston or Jackson given a shot over there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I did watch some, and I think there was beats to go along the whole line, but there was definitely Toa Lobendon. There were some rough patches for him in that game.
Yeah, he gave up a sack to Dalen Hayes, if everyone remembers.
Who I interviewed like 3 times.
Oh yeah, he used to. I think once we did like right outside the Coliseum,
Mm-hmm.
like it was so we're not allowed to talk to prospects when they're on campus. So he was there for some kind of event. So we brought him up. Well, we didn't bring him over. We couldn't do that either. But we met him over at the Coliseum, and Keely did an interview. And if you remember, he was committed for a long time. He was yes, fight on no matter what.
He told me, he was like, my commitment to USC is like a wedding ring. You just don't take that off. It's a public commitment.
Yeah.
And then,
He lost it. He lost his wedding. Went down the
apparently
drain.
so,
And
yeah.
then Sark, the whole Sark thing happened. Which you're not blaming. Like, I'm not blaming
we
him
can't
for.
blame the
Yeah.
kid.
No, the Sark thing happened in USC. He had some shoulder injuries, and USC kind of cooled on him a bit.
There was
changed.
questions if he was even going to be able to play in college, and it's been a slow start to his career, but obviously he had a huge game.
Yeah, 5 tackles and a sack in that game.
Yeah.
We have a question that says, I know it's early to panic, kind of, but is it safe to say another loss this weekend? Are any USC coaches' job in question going forward?
One, it's never too early to panic. It's fine. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't enable them, Ryan. I'm just kidding.
Wait, what's the rule?
What?
Number 1 rule with the P?
Oh, nothing appeases the P.
Nothing appeases the
Exactly.
parents.
So you can panic anytime on the P.
Okay, so I've heard a bunch of different things. I've heard people tell me if USC doesn't win the Pac-12, there's going to be some changes. I just don't know. My theory was after the Utah game, we were talking in the tunnel a little bit, that was an ugly game, and they ended up pulling it out at the end. They didn't play well, but they ended up winning. That's what matters, right? So there's still, that was a huge game in the Pac-12 South, we thought, because we thought Utah and USC were the 2 contenders. Now it's a round robin between USC, Arizona, and Arizona State. But I felt like really, if USC plays poorly against Notre Dame, I didn't expect 35-point loss. Nothing was going to change until they lose a Pac-12 game. So I think you might see at least some different reaction if they go to Tempe and lose, because now you're not controlling your own destiny. And winning the South this year was obviously, everyone expected USC to win. If you lose that game, Arizona State's going to control their own destiny, not USC. And now you're talking about not even winning the Pac-12, not even winning the South. So I'm not saying coaches are going to get fired or anything, but I think if you want to see some feathers ruffled, something change, it would be a loss in the Pac-12.
In-season changes, kind of rare.
Yes.
Head coaches is becoming more and more prevalent where you'll fire a head coach. I don't think USC is going to do that with Clay Helton.
No.
I think he'll at least get to the end of the season and probably has the benefit of the doubt. Beyond that, we'll see. He's not really Lynn Swan's guy, so maybe that plays into it if they play really poorly down the stretch. But like assistant coach changes, those are very rare. Because if you fire an assistant coach during the season, you have to promote somebody that's a volunteer or as an underling on the staff, and then you just lose an extra guy.
Yeah.
So usually, like, I remember Mike Leach fired his special teams coach because they were getting torched. They had given up like 4, 5, 6 returns for touchdowns. Like, that's what it takes for an assistant to get moved out. Or if there's just some kind of like clashing of the heads between a coordinator or something, then maybe like, you know what, we're just going to move you out and bring that. I don't see that. I don't know what did you guys think, but with USC staff, I don't think anyone is performing that poorly. I know you fans want to say this person or this person, T. Martin or John Baxter or whoever, but I don't think they're that poor enough that they would consider an in-season move, especially at this point in the year.
I also don't think that it's like there seems to be this thought that an instant fire is an instant fix. And that's not the case. Like, if you fire someone in the season, it's not going to be suddenly they're so much better because now they don't have a coach. Like, that's not what happens. So I don't know what that's going to fix.
Yeah, I think there could be some role changes. We'll see. Like that's potential. What we saw from Clay Helton after the Pac-12 championship game a couple years ago. He ended up firing the defensive staff. But then you end up bringing it, like you promote like strength coaches and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that was not the ideal situation getting ready for the bowl game. They didn't look very prepared for the bowl game. They didn't practice all that much. It just didn't seem like that was going to be the focus. The focus was going to be on the next season. So they obviously have to focus now. I'm not sure you get yourself a better chance by firing people right now. But I think there might be maybe there's some changes that are forced upon Clay if they do not finish and win the Pac-12, which. That was the goal this year. I mean, you got to win the Pac-12. So,
Art says, is Sam's ankle injury what's causing all his turnovers? If not, what's the deal? I can't believe how often it's happening. How do the coaches address and fix this? It's critical.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Tyson Helton a little bit about this before, and I don't think their philosophy has changed because of the way Sam Darnold plays. He's a instinctive player. He's a guy that he does stuff on the fly, and a lot of his special plays are impromptu. They're just off script. And now, he's forcing some plays, and there's a lot of different factors, I think, that are contributing. But he's had more personal turnovers than over 100 FBS teams, that they have all by themselves. So there's a lot of turnovers. It's certainly a problem. They don't want to, focus on, hey, fix the turnovers, because that might take away from his creativity. So I still haven't seen them I don't think it's got to the critical point where they're saying, all right, stop going off script. We're going to forego the really cool plays that you do so we can limit some of the turnovers. I don't know what you guys think, but I don't see them doing that at this point.
I mean, the biggest things you want to eliminate are the interceptions, I think. I think those are the biggest correctable ones. I mean, some of the fumbles have just been, wow, how'd that happen? I mean, the one that hits Ronald Jones in the face mask, Sam Darnold gets credit for the fumble.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what did Sam Darnold do
realize
wrong?
it was a live ball, and he just doesn't jump on it.
Yeah, and then you have a poor snap that that's not communicated well with the center. Sam makes 2 guys miss, and he basically tries to get down, and the ball is ripped out. There's just been so many different plays where it seems like that. I mean, you had the read option stuff. They're correctable mistakes, but I think those are all kind of so unique. I think the one thing as a quarterback coach, if I was Tyson Helton, I'd be focusing on is interceptions, because some of them is Sam not seeing defenders or throwing into coverage. The one against Notre Dame, he didn't see the underneath cornerback, and he just drifted back on it and picked off the corner route. Very nice play by the cornerback. And then the one against 2 games ago where he didn't see the linebacker coming across. And those are the plays you want to correct. You want to fix those. The fumbles have kind of been unique, I think, in some cases. I mean, I think you put him on the running back and make him run through the thing and get the punch stick out and work on that. Just doesn't hurt.
Dylan McCullough's got great, the running backs aren't fumbling. He's come in and done a bunch of unique things as far as ball security goes. So, yeah, it'd be nice to have the quarterbacks do that too.
Running backs don't get a ton of chances to fumble either.
Right. But I don't think the ankle injury really has it. I think it's the left ankle too. And is there something else going on? We're not really sure. But he throws when he feels, if he sees a guy open, he's throwing it. So if he's on his back foot, if he's not squared shoulder, his shoulder's not squared up, he's still going to throw it. He's got the arm talent to kind of get the ball there. Now, we've seen balls last year, they're always getting the right spot. This year, sometimes they're behind him. Sometimes they're not as accurate as he was before. But that's just kind of his game. So I don't think it's not like the ankle's forcing him to throw a certain way. He throws it when he's ready. He sees a guy open. He's got great vision. He can see guys down there. and usually the arm talent to get it there. This year, it's like he's getting it there, but then sometimes it's behind a guy or low or whatever.
I love his passion on the trainer's table. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm fine. And like they're like trying to test his. They're like, how's it? He's like, I'm fine. And they're like, okay, fine, just go.
Yeah, kept his helmet close by. That's the kind of fire you might need something like that though. You don't expect him to do that because it's not his personality, but that might be what this team needs. And I don't know, just talking to him, like seeing him this week, and maybe you guys think about it, I just didn't feel like there was like this fire that was there. Like he's one of those guys. Remember when Tebow lost that game in 2008, and he was just like getting up at the podium and was like, I will never let this happen again, blah, blah, blah. And he felt like if he loses a game, he's going to be so mad, he's just never going to let it happen again. And I just got the sense that he was like, hey, we just got to fix the little things, we're going to go forward. And I was like, man, I wanted to see him so mad that they lost, and he would just kind of move forward. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. It's maybe that's the culture around the team right now.
I feel like that's not really him in the public eye. I mean, even when he said something about play calling, that it got blown up to this huge thing. If he comes out to us and is super angry or whatever, do you think it would play over well and like what this team needs at this point? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he can be two different people. I think he could be that fiery person in the locker room. Maybe that's what they need, versus saying what he normally says in the media, because he's pretty good about handling all that stuff.
Yeah. He's usually really good about all that kind of stuff.
Daryl asks, what are they doing to address their horrendous tackling?
Well, Keely tweeted something during the game that apparently...
Don't even. You did too.
The tackling was bad. And so you figure this week they'll come in. I'm going to do a piece for our war room about like full pads and stuff. You talk to different people. I talked to one former NFL scout who was like, look, the hay's in the barn. You build up toughness and physicality in spring and fall. You can't really work these guys real hard during the season, especially with a team that has no bye week and stuff like that. I kind of get that. You're not usually running scrimmages in game week practices. They'll do like some kind of tackling drill sometimes. Now USC doesn't do that. I think they're on the other end of the spectrum where they're doing maybe closer to the least amount possible than the most. You're allowed to have 2 fully padded practices, according to the Pac-12. For November, and it's not November yet, but USC goes to none, and that's been a tradition back to like Sark and stuff. I get the reasons behind them not doing it, but the perception, what you see out there when you see them not being physical and you see them getting pushed around, I think it's good just to put extra pads on one day. You don't have to kill the guys, but send some sort of a message. It's different for the guys in the locker room when they're getting dressed and there's shoulder pads only versus full pads. You can send a message. Do it on a Wednesday where they're not expecting it. They never have full pads on Wednesday. Hey guys, we got to play physical. Just to send a message. Do something like that. That's just kind of my theory on the thing. But
I mean, it seemed like you would switch something up.
Yes.
Yeah.
After that game.
Yes.
Do something different.
I mean, that's what I was looking for coming to practice. Is like, all right, are they going to do something different? No, not really. I mean, it was pretty much the same practice. They incorporated, the tight ends and edge rushers kind of went head to head in a kind of a Oklahoma style blocking, without the running back drill, which is something they did a couple weeks back, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So it's good to see that.
Yeah.
I would like to see the whole team do that maybe. Yeah. Just do something a little bit different, kind of switch things up instead of saying, what we've been doing in the past is fine. We'll just keep doing that. As a coaches, I would have come in. And granted, that Monday practice, which has become more and more of a practice now.
Yes.
We don't really know what happened there.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, but they feel like, I think they're very defensive about their process, like trust the process. It's just, yes, everything fell apart, but there were just little things. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And like I said before, I don't think they're going to change that process at all, if at all. The only chance would be losing a game like Arizona State.
I mean, the tackling wasn't as bad as like Western Michigan. The problem more.
I don't agree with that.
The problem more was
tell us, Keely.
the edge stuff. They let them get to the edge so much, especially in that first quarter, that it didn't matter that they didn't make the first tackle because it was 8 yards down the field. It became a 10-yard game instead of 8-yard game. So that was a lot of the problems early. And then when they started running up the middle, 84 yards was without contact. So wasn't tackling on that one on the Josh Adams touchdown run.
That was just, that was bad.
Well, okay. I think that they should at least do like ones versus ones. They did it leading up to Utah, and they were injured then too. I don't understand like why you can't go back to that. But like, I understand the whole they're injured and the no bye week and all that stuff, and players get defensive about that. But they also were defensive about Clay's practice schedule, resting, leading up to the Holiday Bowl against Wisconsin. Like, do you guys remember that? Like, it was, and everyone was like, trust Helton, he knows what he's doing. He's resting us. We're going to come out so fired up and play well. And then it was just like,
yeah,
in the Holiday Bowl. And I know that's 2 years ago, whatever, but I don't know.
He was giving you numbers like, well, we had like 18 opportunities to, because you can have like 15 bowl practices. Actually, I think you can have more than that. That uses like an old rule, but they practiced like 7 times. But he would kind of talk about the week of practice up until the Pac-12 championship game as bowl practices. He included the game itself as one of his numbers, and you're just like, if you just come out and say, look, I had to fire all the defensive coaches. Everything's going on. Like, we're trying to figure out what's going on here. For us to practice 15 times wouldn't make any sense. But he kind of just like fudged the numbers a little bit instead, which that was just kind of a bizarre thing. And then they obviously laid an egg against Wisconsin. But yeah, I agree with you. Going back to that, they defend this process. Whatever.
I just feel like if you didn't have the game you did against Notre Dame, I would give you more the benefit of the doubt. But
yeah,
something has to happen.
When you play kind of poorly every week, except Stanford, and you're like, hey, what about this? Well, we're fine. We're 6-1. We're fine. Well, you weren't fine after Notre Dame, and I think that's why the fans are all upset. And I think I'm not. Sometimes fans are unreasonable. I don't think they're being. Some are, but for the most part, they're not being, all that unreasonable.
Yeah. Daryl says, do you get the impression that the team is starting to doubt the coaching?
I haven't got that impression yet. I mean, it seems like guys are toe of the company line, but what do you think?
I think a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I feel like if there's one thing that I'm kind of used to seeing in my years at USC is when the switch starts to happen, And I think it's a little bit. I don't know.
Interesting.
I haven't got that vibe, but.
Yeah, I mean, they do love Clay Helton, and you remember outgoing seniors like Kessler and Sua Cravens. Well, he wasn't senior, but those guys like defended him, and Sua Cravens still defending him on his tweets and stuff. Yeah, but there's Michael Pittman's dad's tweets were kind of saying like, hey, players aren't happy with stuff. So there's I could see a little bit of that, but for the most part, you talk to these guys, it seemed like. And maybe they get mad at they're mad at us for reporting some of the stuff, that some of the observations we're making. Maybe that's a rallying point. Maybe they kind of bond together and.
All you need is one common enemy.
Yeah.
For an 18 and 22-year-old.
Be us. Be the media. Let us be the common enemy. Or Chris Trevino, you be the enemy.
He's such an easy enemy. No, but I don't think it's like, they doubt like Clay Helton as a person or anything. I think maybe there's just a little bit of frustration with the offense and how it's being handled.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picking up on a little bit. But you doubt me, so it's fine. Sorry, people just like to comment their frustration.
All right, so we're talking about the offense for a second here.
Yes.
Sure.
So there's 2 lines of thought, or 2 congruent lines of thought, that the offense doesn't have any new wrinkles, but then the offense is a grab bag offense. Like, I don't think you can be both. Like, I was trying to figure this out the other day. I was like, all right, so you're complaining, which they do add new wrinkles. They do new wrinkles all the time.
I think there's
wrinkles.
People
don't. They're like, well, how come the defenses are never not prepared for our wrinkles when, because Notre Dame put in what I call some bye week plays, because when you run, they motion, or they had Josh Adams on the right side. They motion him across to the left side and then have him revert to do a fake reverse that they're going to throw. I'm like, wait a second, what is this play? This is something you're like, all right, we got an extra week. What are we going to draw up this week? That was one of those type of plays. So those are the type of wrinkles they're saying, they did some different things. Maybe like the fake RPO, they threw the tight end. That was a very nice play by Notre Dame, and the Notre Dame commentators, or Chirico and Doug Flutie, who's been watching them, said, this is something they put in during the bye week. Those are the type of wrinkles where you don't see it at all on film through the first 8 games. You're not really prepared for it. And can USC throw some more things in there? Sure. And I think they do some different things, but I don't know where you guys stand on whether it's a no-wrinkle offense or a grab bag offense, but I don't feel like, can they be the same?
Yeah, I think it's. I think there's wrinkles. I feel the grab baggy stuff is more of it, though. I don't feel like there's a rhythm. I feel like you do some things and it's working, and then in your mind you'd be like, all right, so I can do something off of these plays, or don't do the exact same plays, but doing something similar to force the defense to change. But it's like, you get the feeling like, nope, we should probably run the ball now because the pass, I just feel like it's more grab baggy than here's this like, flow of what the offense is. There's some new plays for sure, but they're just kind of more like random plays as far as that's my thought. But.
Yeah, I think you can add new wrinkles and still be grab baggy. You know what I'm saying? Because grab baggy is more like rhythm and going with what works, and wrinkles are just part of it.
No, I agree. I just feel like fans are complaining about both. I'm like, can you really complain about both? Yeah. I think you can only choose one instead of the other. Really.
You want concise complaining.
Yes.
Just make sure it's balanced. Like that's all you need.
Balanced complaining as well.
But yeah, gotta complain about both sides.
We're getting multiple questions about John Houston. Someone says, should they put Levi Jones in there instead?
I would like to see Levi Jones get an opportunity. I don't think he needs to be the starter or anything, but I would like to see him be worked into the mix. I don't know exactly what he is not doing to get an opportunity. John Houston didn't play very well in that game. Christian Rector as well did not play well in that game. Notre Dame really attacked the side where both of those guys were playing, and then you had Iman Marshall go out, so then you have Isaiah Langley on the same side. You had Brandon Peely as a true freshman. And I was talking with Keely the other day at practice. It's like, hey, if you're an offense, do you want to attack the side that has Rasheem Green, Uchenna Nwosu, and Cam Smith, or the side who has a true freshman, a backup and Christian Rector who's playing in kind of a hybrid position, a less experienced linebacker and a replacement DB? And I think Notre Dame did a really good job, especially in the first quarter. That's when they were able to get on the edge so much. They really attacked that side over and over and over. And, that's where they had a lot of success. I don't think John Houston played great. He did do some nice things. I had him a couple times in my game notes as doing some positive things.
Yeah.
But I would like to see, just because I think for Levi Jones' development, because I think Levi Jones can be really special here eventually. And, I think he's a guy that's going to have to play a lot next year if Cam Smith were to leave early. So, I would like to see him get some opportunities in the mix. And that's something we, kind of been wanting to see a little bit with, some rotating a little bit more with some of those defenders, some of the young defenders giving them opportunity. But, when they get in, they got to make the most of their opportunities too.
It's like you wouldn't have known Christian Rector. He wasn't a starter, but he gets in for some third down stuff and like, hey, man, he's pretty good at rushing the passer. Let's play him more. I think the same thing with Levi Jones. You're seeing him do really well on special teams. He's just not getting opportunities. Almost reminds me of Quentin Powell from a couple years ago. They had problems tackling. Hey, this guy's tackling like a fiend, but he's too small. He's whatever. It's like, dude, if he can tackle, let him tackle. And I think Levi Jones is a guy who can tackle, get some pressure. So not saying he should be replacing anybody, but man, get him some more turns.
And Levi Jones had a tackle on his first play when they went to garbage time.
A different Ronnie asks, want to know if you saw Sewell Craven's comments. I agree with one comment. Looks like we need kids who have heart to be a Trojan. That's just my opinion. What's yours? I think until this game, you actually saw that USC had heart. I mean, you can't come back from games like they did if you don't have heart.
Good point.
I don't know.
I think they just got deflated. It just felt like everything was going against them, and it did, and it just snowballed into this big game.
And when you're in an environment like that, it's really hard to get in the zone. If it's not going your way and you have thousands of fans crazy, it's hard.
Yeah, I didn't really buy that it was like a player thing, but I think that's him defending the coaches and stuff too. But I thought it was more coaching, personally.
Steve asks, what's the mood of the team right now? Fight or flight? Something else? I
don't know if it's either. I don't think it's fight or flight. It's not like they don't feel like USC fans feel like their back's up against the wall. I don't feel like that's what the players think like. It's they think, hey, just get back on it, go beat Arizona State, and everything will be fine. So I don't think they're in that mode.
Juan asks, is the defense going to be ready for new wrinkles? The opposing team always seems to throw at them, according to Coach Helton.
Now, if a new wrinkle happens, they're done. So,
when you have an off season, you don't know the coaches. You know, Western Michigan, that's going to happen. When Texas, you prepared the entire off season for USC, which is why I probably lost to Maryland. Christopher Reno's Maryland. Then maybe that's what happened. And, when you have a bye week, you're going to get new wrinkles as well. So some of the times the wrinkles are kind of like, okay, you understand that those are new wrinkles. And how did USC adjust to them? USC did some different things in that game. They moved Jordan Iosefa to an outside linebacker spot. That was kind of an in-game adjustment. I talked to him yesterday. He's like, yeah, they came to me and I said, let's go, Jordan. And he was in. Like, he hadn't practiced at it since, I guess, his freshman year, so not at all this season. And, they wanted someone more athletic on that edge to try to contain Winbush when he was starting to run the read option and stuff, rather than Christian Rector when they were getting one-on-one situations with him.
Yeah. I would say Arizona State had to play Washington and Utah on the road, So they were not looking ahead. There was no look ahead to USC. So I don't think there should be anything new and profound. I mean, they did all they could to win those 2 games. They did, and now they look. The defense that was giving up 30 points a game gave up 17 over the last 2, including a top 5 team in the country. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be any kind of new wrinkles. You just have to go into a hostile environment and play well.
And they got some big turnovers in that game. That's going to be a real big key this week. They were able to turn Utah over in Utah's territory, so give them a short field. I expect to see a lot of Manny Wilkins, a lot of Kalen Balaj, and a lot of N'Keal Harry. And especially N'Keal Harry with Iman Marshall being out. You got 2 a little bit smaller cornerbacks with Jack Jones and Isaiah Langley.
He's a big dude. Yeah.
If they can get him on, Isaiah Langley in particular one-on-one, I think they're going to try to exploit that over and over. You might see some cloud coverage with a safety over the top to help out on that if that's the case. Jack Jones I'm kind of interested. They used the cloud coverage a lot with Jack Jones early in the season, which is why teams were trying to throw one-on-one and get to Iman Marshall, and he didn't play his best, but that was part of the reason why he was being attacked. Now do they trust Jack Jones enough to leave him on the island with Iman Marshall out? I'm curious to see how that plays out defensively.
He's been the best guy, at least playing the ball in the air. It's just been such it's just not a skill it seems like these DBs have sometimes. So, I mean, Isaiah Langley was in a really good position on one of those back shoulder throws from Winbush, and it just didn't make a play on the ball. I mean, we've seen that from Iman Marshall a lot. At least Jack Jones got 4 interceptions. He's made some and got his hands on other balls, so we'll see.
We have multiple questions that I'm kind of combining about offensive talent.
Okay.
Do you think Helton is not playing the young talent on offense due to giving seniors playing time? We all remember the Max Brown Darnold move. And then Christian asks, why are we not seeing Velus Jones more involved? I think you definitely saw that in the beginning with the wide receivers.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of young talent is sitting on the bench. Like they
not anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Green has been kind of relegated back to being a backup now. He played like 5 snaps before the garbage time in the 4th quarter. They always say you don't lose your starting position when you get an injury. Well, Jalen Green kind of did, because Tyler Vaughn was already going to kind of take over a starting role. And then when Steven Mitchell came back healthy, he kind of got pushed down. And like I said, they went with the Juju Smith-Schuster, Darius Rogers rotation of not rotating starting receivers. So he didn't see much time. He had a really good week, I thought, this week in practice. He had a bunch of catches on Tuesday. And maybe he gets a little bit more involved in there, too. The younger guys,
I mean, they're mostly playing.
Who's really made plays besides Tyler Vaughn?
Yeah.
I mean, at least in the receiver group. Velus Jones had a couple opportunities early to make some deep catches and didn't make them. They want to use him as a deep threat. They use him in special packages. They use him at running back. They do some different things with him. So he has, there's a Velus Jones package every game. That doesn't mean he always gets the ball. It's kind of like a Dory last year. He doesn't always get the ball. And when Velus Jones has got the ball, it hasn't, been a Dory, because nobody's going to be a Dory. But if he breaks a long run, or he gets in the slot and finds a seam and they hit him, then I think when you produce, you get more opportunities, obviously.
Yeah, you're playing young guys at tight end. You're playing 2 freshmen. You're playing freshmen on the offensive line. It's really just the wide receivers that you're looking. I mean, they're playing. The running backs has mostly been Ronald Jones, but you were playing Stephen Carr. He was a true freshman when you're out there. But Joseph Lewis, Jody Lewis. You kind of seeing some stuff from him, or Josh Metrobebe. Like, all these guys have got some limited opportunities. The offense hasn't been clicking, but none of them have burst on the scene. I think at least with Tyler Vaughn, you're seeing him. I mean, they're throwing to him on 4th and long, and he's making one-handed catches and stuff. He started off a little slow. He should have been, but you're right. He should have been starting from day one. The fact that he didn't start until Washington State, the 5th game, is a crime. That's a coaching mistake. That's just stupid.
That's only because you love Tyler Vaughn.
I do love Tyler Vaughn. There's a story up on USCFootball.com right now. Check it out. He's cool. He's like, hey, I was just waiting for my opportunity. Yeah. But it's like, he should have been playing.
Ryan says, what was with the offensive line coach that got snippy and short with shotgun? Was he feeling that from Helton? Having a bad day? Is he always like that?
He's that's just kind of his personality.
Kind of always like that.
He doesn't like, to answer a lot of questions, and then when he gets pressed on stuff, it usually doesn't become more positive. So in that situation, Clay Helton had said, there was physical beats. So Zach Helfand and I were both kind of questioning him about that. I was kind of questioning him about, the group playing as a unit, because that seemed to be the thing. One person, 4 guys a block, and 1 guy wouldn't. And Chris Brown had told me that previous to that interview. Tuolumidon said the same thing after that interview. I don't know why he couldn't just say, yeah, we're not playing great as a unit. We've got to get better. And instead, he chose to finish the interview with a pat and a walk away. So.
Did you end up putting the video up or no?
I haven't yet. Okay, that'll be
yeah.
later today.
Okay. So, Zach Helfand from the LA Times, I think, posted all the quotes and stuff. And it was pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's just like, okay.
Ronnie says, I know Sam is more mobile than he looks. Do you think on some plays moving the pocket will help him move the defense and get them out of their comfort zone and not sit back and read all day?
They didn't move the pocket as much against Notre Dame, but they also didn't do a lot of stuff that they had been doing a couple games earlier. There was like two tight end sets. They were really successful against Utah with that. So they scrapped some stuff. I think maybe if the ankle was actually bothering Sam, maybe that's part of the reason why they didn't do as many rollouts. They did a couple. They did some sprint outs with quick outs. They did that on fourth down play to get to Deontay Burnett for first down. I think depending on the health of his ankles is part of whether or not you go with that. And if Chuma Edoga's not available, then maybe they do that again. That was something that was in the Washington State game plan to protect the left tackle, was a sprint out right. Maybe they do some stuff to keep the right side of the offensive line to help them out a little bit, because if he's not available, it's either going to be Austin Jackson or Clayton Johnston. So you got a freshman or a redshirt sophomore playing beside another freshman in Andrew Voorhees. I
think they're really good when it's not necessarily they're designing a play to move the pocket. It's just something breaks down and he gets outside, and it still looks like a regular play because he's still looking downfield to make something. He's got tackled, though, like by the ankles a couple of times, where normally he gets away from those rushers and they can't get him. It's very frustrating. You saw that Penn State do it. They get after him and they fall at his feet. Well, in this game they were getting him, and I don't know if maybe it's because you're a little slower because of the ankle or what, but those kind of plays where he normally wasn't getting sacked, he was not just getting away, but getting away and making a chunk play. He just wasn't even getting away this time.
Every little thing went against USC, because if he gets away from Julian Okara with the stiff arm, then he throws the ball away, just throws it out of bounds. Then it's an automatic first down on the holding call.
Yeah, that's true, because it wasn't a first down because he ended up getting sacked. So.
Christian asks, does anyone know if T's a list of scripted plays or if he coaches/calls play on the fly?
I think they're scripted at the beginning. I think he's mentioned that before. He doesn't say like how many or whatever, but it's usually like 10 or 15 or something.
But USC's usually pretty good on those opening drives.
Yeah,
so.
They weren't in this one, but.
Well, they didn't really have a chance in this one.
True.
William says, I am just as concerned with the strength and conditioning program as I am with not hitting in practice. Between the guys getting driven off the line and the number of injuries, especially the muscle tears, I really question that aspect. What do you think?
I mean, people bring that up a lot. It's hard to, it's just really hard to say. Like, you'd have to really know. I mean, if we're not all like kinesiology majors and stuff, I think every strength program you make a whole bunch of decisions of how you're going to train guys. And, if you end up getting a bunch of injuries a whole bunch of times, I've had people from Washington write me and say, oh, yeah, there was a big problem when, he was at Washington. I mean, it's just really hard to say. I think people just want to throw that out there. You see injuries and that could happen, but I don't know if you guys think anything differently. But
I defer.
Defer, yeah.
Why? Well, I mean, I don't know. I think Pro Day was a little bit, eye-opening.
That was more concerning to me. Like, I think sometimes injuries are random, but when you have offensive linemen that are not lifting as much as wide receivers are, and, slow offensive linemen, fine, whatever, but, like, the slowest in history or – not being able to put a lot of bench press, then I think you're questioning, like, okay, so, I mean, maybe that's just not part of the philosophy, is focusing on those things that you do at the combine. If you feel like, hey, football isn't about bench press. You've talked to strength coaches that say that. They don't really care about the bench press because that's not like a football sort of move. I mean, that could be the philosophy. I don't know. But they were really defensive at the USC Pro Day. They weren't allowing media onto the field. And I think it was because of that they just wanted we were kind of being negative towards the strength program and stuff, but yeah.
Romero asked, does this suspect season give recruits a bad taste? What have you guys heard from recruits?
Recruits don't care about like an individual game. Like the greatest Gerard Martinez story ever was, who's the linebacker? Mantateo, that was traveling from Hawaii to South Bend. They're getting crushed, I think, by like Navy or something. They're throwing snowballs at him and other people on the field, and he still ended up going and was silently committed to USC and ends up picking Notre Dame. So, it's what you care about as a fan the players are like, hey, I'm not there. First of all, when I get there, I can change things. There's a million other reasons why a player would pick a school. An individual game doesn't really all matter that much. If a team's terrible, then they feel like, hey, I can come in and play right away. Sometimes a player wants to go to a front-running team. Sometimes it doesn't matter. So it really depends on the prospect. It's not like, oh, USC lost a couple games, so all the recruits are going to go away. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, especially local recruits don't care as much. Yeah. They're like, oh, that's my home school. I can help turn it around. I can be a hometown hero. Where you get into trouble is when you have out-of-state recruits, especially highly ranked recruits. Those guys are usually going to the teams that are winning the most recently. So a guy like maybe Jackson Carman in Ohio or some of the Missouri defensive tackles they're looking at, those are the ones that you get more concerned with if you lose a couple more games. But if you win the Pac-12, then all of a sudden you're back in the good graces.
Christian asked, do you guys see Big E coming back next year? I remember him being one of the commits that was stressing the importance of winning a national championship.
His plan was a 3-year and done kind of thing. It's not about the national championship. It's about what he wants to do. So, I think his plan was to leave after 3, but I don't think he's played well enough to do that. So I kind of think at this point he comes back, but I don't know what you think, Shaka.
As of right now, I'd say he would come back. You just to strengthen, I think he'll get his degree this year. I know the family was really big on a 3-year plan and getting the degree in 3 years. So if he does have his degree, it depends if he comes back and if he plays really well in the last couple games. That may be enough film for scouts. I think the end of the season could be a big determiner for him. If he doesn't play great, I think then he has more to prove, and especially if he wants to stay at cornerback at the next level, which is something he's has been very firm about.
He's adamant about, and everyone we talk to says make him a safety. Like that's the kind of canned response, right?
Yeah, so he wants to be a cornerback, and if that's the case, then maybe he comes back to prove that he can be that at the next level.
I was there at his signing day. He told me, I'm going to make sure USC wins a natty. Mark that down. So I tweeted it. So we'll see.
Nice.
If anybody wants to go through the archives and find my story on Biggie, my behind the verbal on him, it was a really fun one. Just talking about how, because he was the first guy to do the video. The video came out right before the announcement.
I was running to the high school, and they're like, oh, yeah, he already committed. I was like, oh, what?
According to the Bleacher Report video. And then, he was kind of the first one to kind of just disperse he wanted to see different locales. He wanted to see, different areas of the country and see if any of those fit him better.
Yeah.
And then Jack Jones kind of followed suit with that behind him. So he was kind of a trendsetter in the way he did it. He went through his recruitment, and his dad Tony was a big part of that. So it's a story kind of about both of them and how they went to that decision. So if you have a couple minutes, check that one out. It'd be interesting to see, and that might help answer the question on the three and done.
We're getting close to the top of the hour. How many? Do we have a lot of questions left?
We have a little bit.
Okay.
Mark says, do you see USC going 2-2 in the next 4 games?
I think it's a distinct possibility.
We got Arizona State, Arizona, UCLA, and
Colorado.
So Colorado, no.
Colorado.
UCLA, I mean, you don't know. I mean, you got Josh Rosen. I don't think they're that great of a team, but the Arizona schools are the ones I think. I mean, going Tempe on Saturday night, it's going to be hard. And the way Khalil Tate is playing for Arizona, I mean, you think Brandon Wimbush is good. Now, Notre Dame has a better offensive line, but I think Khalil Tate's a way better player. I mean, he's just trucking dudes. So the way, I mean, that could be a big problem. That's homecoming, and
I know he's going to be licking his lips, seeing how USC has played against some, run-first quarterbacks as well.
So, that's a distinct possibility. I mean, they could go 4-0. But they could go 1-3 too. So like that, and that would be like disaster. That would be 2012 all over again. So
that would be potential firing in season.
Yeah.
Alberto Carrillo says, "Are we ever going to run a 2 backfield power run game like USC of old?"
No. I mean, they did. They actually brought back their 2-back set this game with Vi and Ced Ware for the first time since the Texas game. First time they brought it in over a month, and
they ran it like twice, though, right?
They ran it twice, and one of them was a throw behind Deontay that Sam and Deontay were on the same page. The other one was like a 1-yard run.
But this offensive philosophy is not fullback power. That's just not what they do.
Tester Troy says, "Shotgun, can we get your honest opinion on how our offensive line has performed on the year? Maybe give us a grade for the year so far. I have us at a solid C."
For the year, that's. The grade was progressively getting better when everyone was healthy. And you had Vianney in there instead of a true freshman. I don't think Andrew Voorhees. I mean, if you could have, you would have redshirted him. Just save him. I mean, KU talked about yesterday about if they could, they would redshirt every defensive lineman. He talked about how he redshirted, Lawrence Jackson redshirted, Sid Ellis redshirted. That's 3 NFL guys that did pretty darn well. And he said, it's just a year of growth, and it's really big on the defensive line. It's the same thing with the offensive line. I think if you can redshirt a guy, very rarely, I mean, the 5-star tackles are usually the guys that can step in. Maybe a Chris O'Dowd at center, Jeff Byers, those type of guys. But a lot of times, Andrew Voorhees is a 3-star, and
we're 3-star like guard. Like he shouldn't be playing as a true freshman.
Scout is pretty good with determining, the 3, 4, 5 stars. And nothing against Andrew Voorhees. I think he's going to be very good in his career. I think he's going to outplay that 3-star ranking. However, it's much different when it's a 5-star guy because usually those guys are ready to step in if you need to. I think Austin Jackson's been okay. Clayton Johnston has stepped in and been okay. I think Nico Fala hasn't played great. I think Chris Brown has been really good at times and then not so good at other times. And Toa Lobana, I thought he's been pretty good as a left tackle. He didn't play great in this Notre Dame game. There's your individual good, great, bad rankings. As an overall group,
what are you giving him?
C's probably good.
I think C is fair.
C's probably good. I mean, at times, and especially now with different guys switching in and out, and Chuma, I thought Chuma was going to have a monster year. And he's really been hampered by injuries. With him switching in and out and being injured, and Vianney hurt, Toa getting staff. I mean, just all these kind of random things happening to have people switching in and out all the time. I just don't think they played great as a cohesive unit.
No.
That's what I kind of tried to ask Neil Callaway about.
They also, if you ever talk to any offensive line guys, it's supposed to be 5 fingers on a hand, and it's not. It's more like a hook or something. Like it's not.
Well, in that same vein, a lot of people are saying that why isn't Toa at guard? He's not very good at tackle.
He didn't play great in this game against Notre Dame. He's been really good besides that, I thought.
I don't know about really good. He's I'm not sure. I think he's been okay, but I don't think he has not been like this amazing left tackle. And he's got a bunch of penalties and stuff too. I kind of think he'd be better at guard also, but.
I was always on the Toa guard train, so.
Well, I asked Toa before the season what position would he prefer to play. He would prefer to play center because that's his best chance at the next level. Yeah. I mean, that's a selfish reason, but give him credit for moving out to tackle and taking that because he knows.
Yeah, I think he's not in the. He's not. He's doing it. He's helping the team.
Yeah, he knows that's not his
whole
position.
Career at USC, helping the team.
I'll move here. I'll move there. Whatever.
Chad Wheeler for this or that. Yeah.
Which is why he's one of my favorite players.
Yeah,
he definitely is.
Wow, we just got like 4 questions in a row. Okay.
We got to wrap it up, people. Well, I don't mind, but these guys have to do their Family Feud podcast is coming up, so.
And somebody has to work.
At the end of the season, if Swan steps in and makes Helton make some moves with the coaching staff, who do you think is in jeopardy of losing their job?
I think that would depend on Swan's personal relationships with people, so I don't think we really know that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to tell. He could come in there and say, "Hey, you got to make some changes."
Sometimes the ADs don't specify.
Yeah.
And there's no telling what Lynn Swan, since he hasn't been an AD before, and he's not your quintessential athletic director. He's an offensive guy, though, so maybe like Helton always says, I pay more attention to the offense. Maybe because Swan was a receiver, he does the same.
But that kind of stuff happens. I remember with Lane Kiffin, I think they were forcing him to make a change at offensive line coach. They had like James Craig, and Kiffin was kind of like very immature about it, if you can imagine him being immature about it, and didn't get rid of James Craig, but brought in a second offensive line coach. It was Mike Summers, maybe? I don't remember. I think that might have been who it was. And so they ended up having 2 offensive line coaches for that year, and it was just like, so you could tell something was forced upon him, but he didn't quite do it to the letter of the law.
Randy says, what is going on with Jamel Cook and Pai Young? Are they leaving the program after this year?
We have heard nothing about them leaving. Pai Young is redshirting. He realized he was 5 games in. He had been struggling with a hamstring. Just finally getting back healthy, probably last week for the first time. It didn't really make sense because he's switching to receiver this year to just get used to the system and be ready to go next year. So he's redshirting. Jamel Cook, that's the big mystery. Why he didn't even, when you had several walk-ons taken on the trip, why did Jamel Cook not go on the trip? And then when you lose Iman Marshall, at the end of the game, Isaiah Langley had to play every play the rest of the game. And at the end of the game, Ajene Harris had to move from nickelback to the outside cornerback position because there was no other scholarship cornerback available.
Yeah.
And Greg Johnson's out for the year, and Jakari Godfrey has kind of been in limbo with his knee. He's obviously redshirting this season. So you know, they had nobody else. They could put Jalen Jones in, but that was about the only option. Or maybe Yuffie Kwanzaa was there.
I asked Helton about it, but he didn't mention why. Yeah, when I asked Helton, he didn't mention why Jamel Cook didn't go on the trip, but he said he's in the 2 deep, right? So it's like, well, he wasn't really in the 2 deep for Notre Dame. I'm not sure what's going on, but we'll see. Does he play? I'm guessing no, but
if they get an injury, that's the guy's going in. I don't think they're going to push a Janae outside and try. I mean, they might actually. They probably.
If they really are hell bent on him not playing, like.
Yeah, that'd be tough. It also would depend on who
if
gets
that's
hurt,
the case,
if Langley or Jack Jones.
Yeah, if he doesn't play at all, then I wouldn't think he's sticking around, right? Like, I mean, why would you? I mean, there's opportunity. Like, yeah. So we haven't heard anything like he's definitely leaving. I know there's been rumors and crap, but I don't think any of that's true. But I would think at the end of the season, if he's in the doghouse or whatever, if for whatever reason he's not getting on the field when he likely should be, then I wouldn't think he's going to stick around.
And if the coaching staff is the same,
yes.
And if Iman Marshall still stays, those are definite push-outs.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Tito says, Josh Fatu playing this week? We haven't seen him at practice.
Yeah.
And we got no update.
The thing with concussions, though, is, you can suddenly everything clears up and you're good to go. That's possible. That defensive line just continues to get beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, Rasheem Green does not get enough credit for all he's done this year. He didn't do much of anything against Notre Dame. They double-teamed him a lot. But, he's fought through a couple ankle injuries because without him, I mean, at times they had Malik Dorton and Liam Jimmons in the game together. And those are 2 guys that the people on the message board are like, oh, I remember there was a thread about, is Liam Jimmons ever even going to see the field here? Well, he's playing a bunch now because, the injuries they've had. I mean, Marla Tuipulotu being out. You having to burn Brandon Peely's red shirt. That was the question that KU was asked about, with the red shirts. He said he would have loved to have redshirted him. Peely's still getting into game shape. That was an issue against Notre Dame some.
He can't play the whole game. Like, he told me that after the game. So he's just not in shape enough to do that. And you mentioned, like, Liam Jimmons. Remember the one, the Josh Adams run that went 84 yards, nobody touched? It was right through where he was and just got pushed out of the way. Yeah.
He got pushed into Cam Smith's gap, and then Cam Smith kind of got lost in the trash, and that's choo.
Yeah.
Choo. Okay, I said last one, but this is the last one.
One more.
Tester Troy says, who's going to win in the score? All 3 of you, starting with Keeley. Thanks, Tester Troy. For some reason, I just can't see USC winning this. I think ASU is going to win. But I think it's going to be close. I think a turnover is going to be the difference maker.
Wow, okay. What's this? There's no numbers involved.
Yeah, because I don't do that.
Okay.
Tester Troy.
I think same thing. Like, I went against I was 4-1. You can see on my chart, picking the Pac-12 games against the spread last week. What did I get wrong? Stupid USC. I went against my rule. Do not pick USC to cover the spread. I'm not going to pick. So USC's favoring this one by like 2.5 or 3. I don't think they're going to cover. I do think ASU is going to win this one. I just haven't seen them do anything different. I just don't think they're going to be ready for this environment. If they weren't ready for Notre Dame, I think it's going to be similar. So something like a 31-28 sort of thing. ASU, I think, are going to win this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see what you're doing here. Spread's 2.5. I don't think USC's going to cover either. But the reverse Hail Mary. Tyler Vaughn catches a Hail Mary at the end to win it.
Wow.
28-27 or 31-30.
Reverse Hail Mary. You heard it here first.
Maybe even tipped off, Daniel Morbebe tips the ball. Tyler Vaughn scoops it.
Are we going to see a Daniel Morbebe anything? Is he going to be himself? He's played, but he's not himself.
I mean, the offense wasn't as good with him this game. I mean, they were averaging, 12 yards a play or 11 yards a play previously with him. But they were still much better with him in the game at tight end.
Really? Okay.
They were it was 5 or 6 yards of, 5.5 to 6 yards of play compared to when Tyler Petit was in, it was 4 yards of play. So.
All right.
He just makes, for some reason, things happen when he's in the game.
He's special. All right. Maybe if Daniel Morbebe has a huge game, I think USC will win this one. How about that? They got to do so many things better, though. But all right, so we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to let Keeley and Shotgun do their Family Feud podcast. So make sure you check all that out on uscfootball.com. For Shotgun, for Keeley, and I'm Ryan. And Chris Trevino over there. Say hi, Chris. Thanks. He'll be contributing to these down the road. We'll make them. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live broadcast again. We'll try to do it every week, Thursdays during the season. And we'll probably try to do some off-season ones and stuff, too. So we love getting your questions. We love make an interaction. Keely didn't like that we're going to try to do this in the off season too.
What did you say?
You're like, wow.
I was excited.
It's a long drive for her. So we'll, I told her, man, she's getting a real job. Like, what are you moving up there for? And they move close to the South Bay, but whatever.
Not all of us can afford to live by the ocean, right?
Oh, right. There's a power plant right behind this thing. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you again next week.